So hi there everybody. Today we are going to learn some of the basic elements of cheerleading, and here to demonstrate those for you are Quan and Brittany, and they are going to show you the fundamentals that you can use to build a foundation for improving your skills as a cheerleader and working on more advanced skills later on. But we are going to start with the very, very basics. First one will be how to make a correct fist. So, when you are making a fist in cheerleading, you always want to make sure that your fingers are curled in and that your thumb is across your knuckles. You don't want it sticking out to the side, because then you're going to look like you're doing a thumbs up, and you don't want to tuck it inside your fingers, because that can actually cause an injury. If something were to hit your hands, you can actually break your knuckle on your thumb. So you always want to make sure your fingers are tucked in and your thumb is across your knuckles. Just like that. Very nice. Alright, our next hand motion is called blades. And in this one, all of your fingers should be straight, including your thumb. You want to make sure that your thumb is in line with your fingers, not sticking out to the side or anything, because otherwise you're going to look like you're doing something funky. So nice and straight, fingers all together and thumb tucked in as well. So that is your fist and your blade. And those are the two basic motions that you're going to do with your hands in cheerleading. So the next thing that's really important to remember is that your hands and your wrists are supposed to act as like an extension of your arm. So anytime you're doing a motion, you want to make sure that your wrist is all the way straight from your elbow all the way to either the top of your fist or to the top of your fingertips if you're doing blades. If you're bent one way or the other, then it's going to look like you are not doing a straight motion. The next thing that we are going to talk about is claps and clasps. And I know that sounds a lot alike, but they are different. When you are doing a clasp, your hands want to make sure that your fingers are not interlaced together, but all the fingers from your hand, one hand are on one side and the fingers from the other hand are on the other side. Just like that. And when you do a clap, you want to have your hands up in blades and nice and straight, fingers pointed, and elbows are always in there. Both of our demonstrators are doing a very good job of keeping their elbows tucked in like they're supposed to. When you do a clasp, you always want to make sure that it's right below your chin, so you're not blocking your beautiful smile. Thank you. And when you do a clap, typically your hands will stay in the same place, so your fingers are going to come up just a little bit so that they are just in front of your face slightly. Very nice. Whenever you do a motion in cheerleading, typically your hands are going to be facing one of two directions, and we use our fist to describe that direction. So when you make a fist, you have the big side of your fist, which is the side with your thumb, and we will call that our big cinnamon. It looks like a cinnamon roll. It's swirly. And then on the side that has our pinky finger, we will call those our little cinnamon rolls. So that is how we describe directions in our motion. So when I say I want to see a motion with your big cinnamon rolls facing forward, you'll know which side of your hand should be facing the audience or the coach. And if I say I want to see your little cinnamon rolls facing forward, you'll know that you need to do a motion facing with the pinky side of your hand. Got it? Motion time. So there are some basic motions that you will see used over and over again in cheerleading, and they mostly are named after letters of the alphabet, which is kind of nice, because if you don't know what it's supposed to look like, if you know your alphabet, which by now you should be able to do your motion. So we are going to start with the most basic cheer motion of them all, and that is a high V. So in a high V, your big cinnamon rolls should be facing forward. Your arms should look like a V in the air, and you want to make sure you're not scrunching up your shoulders so that you don't have a neck. You want to make sure that your arms aren't too close together, because that's another motion altogether. So you want to find a nice happy medium that makes a V shape. And if you need to, practice these in the mirror so that you can see where your arms should be. Also, in your motions, you want to make sure that your arms are slightly in front of you so that if you were wiggling your fingers and looking straight ahead, you'd be able to see your fingers moving out of the corner of your eye. And that is called your peripheral vision. And see how her arms are slightly in front of her body. Perfect. The next motion is called a low V, and you literally just take your arms, bring them down, same exact thing, turn that V upside down, and maybe it should be called a triangle, but we're keeping it simple, it's a low V. Your big cinnamon roll should be facing forward again, and just like we're going to tell you every single time, make sure those arms are slightly in front of your body. Moving on to the next letter of the alphabet, although we're definitely going out of order, we are going to do a T motion. In a T motion, you want to make sure, again, that your big cinnamon rolls are facing forward and that your arms are slightly in front of you, and you want to make sure that you are level all the way across. If somebody were to come over and take a broomstick and put it across your arms from wrist to wrist, it should stay completely flat. If you have one arm too high or one arm too low, then it just is going to be all kinds of messy. Or you might be doing a diagonal, which is a move we'll get to a little bit later. If you have your arms too far back in a T motion, it's going to look like that. Not very pretty. So always make sure that you keep those arms in front of you. It may seem a little bit awkward. You might think that a T should be arms directly out from your side. But when you're looking at a T, even with the arms directly straight out from your side, from a perspective of judges or someone up high in the audience at a football game, it actually looks like your arms are slightly behind you. So you're always going to want to keep those arms right out in front of you so that you can see them out of the corner of your eye no matter what, even if you're looking forward. Your next motion is called a half T, sometimes also known as a broken T. You just bend those elbows and bring your wrists right in close to your shoulders. You want to make sure that your fists are not touching. They should be just a little bit apart so that your arms are comfortable, not stretched or strained, sticking your boobs out. That's inappropriate and incorrect as well. And you also want to make sure that those wrists are straight. A half T is one of those motions that when your wrists are bent, it is really, really noticeable. So always make sure that those wrists are nice and straight. All right, our next motion is actually not a letter of the alphabet. It is a football field apparatus, which you will learn more about when we are cheering for football games. And that is called a goalpost. That is both arms directly up above your head. This is one motion where I want to see little cinnamon rolls facing forward. And you want to make sure that your arms are straight. You don't want to have them bent or out to the sides. Then you're just looking like you're doing a backwards high V. So goalpost is arms straight up above your head, both arms straight. Make sure your head is straight also. Next is a low goalpost. You just bring those arms straight down in front of you. They should be in line with your thighs. So you don't want to have them out to the side of your body. They want to be directly in front of your legs. If you move from here to daggers, you're going to just bend your elbows straight up so that your wrists and your fists are in line with your shoulders, and that your elbow to wrist makes a nice straight line. Once again, you want to make sure that those wrists are straight, elbows are straight, no bending, no craziness. From daggers, if you pick your arms straight up in front of you, that's called a box motion. It's kind of like looking through a window. Your arms should be framing your face, making a beautiful picture frame for your nice, pretty cheer smiles. A box motion, we are going to move on to our punch motion. A punch motion uses half of a goalpost, and the other hand goes on your fist. If you are doing a right punch, your right arm is in the air, and your left hand is on your hip. You're going to notice that Brittany and Quan are actually doing less punches at the moment, but they are mirroring you so that while you watch this video, you're putting your right arm in the air. If you were to switch those arms, you would now be doing a left punch. Make sure, again, that that arm is nice and straight. You want to make sure that your head is straight and you don't lean your head on your arm, because then it makes your whole punch move and look crooked, and that's just not pretty. All right, back to our letters of the alphabet. We are going to do high V, low V, but we're going to do a half high V and a half low V. So in a half high V, you're doing the same thing as you did in a punch. You're using half of a high V motion, and you're putting the other hand on your hip. So if you were to do a right half high, your right arm would be in the air, and your left hand would be on your hip. If you would switch that, you would then be doing a left half high V. If you moved that high V arm down to a low V, you would now be doing a left half low V, and if you switch those arms one more time, you would be doing a right half low V. It's a lot of words. Right half low V. All right, and moving on to our next alphabet letter, we are going to work on L's. In an L motion, you are taking half of a T motion and half of a goalpost motion and putting them together to make an L. Now, remember, only one of them is actually going to look like an L. The other one's going to be a backwards L, but nonetheless, they're still L's. So an L is always called by the direction you would be pointing with your T arm. So to do a right L, you are going to put your right arm in a T and your left arm in a goalpost. And your bottom T arm should be big cinnamon rolls facing forward, and your upper arm should be little cinnamon rolls facing forward. If you just go ahead and switch those arms, you are now going to be doing a left L, and you would be pointing to the left with your left hand, big cinnamon roll, right hand, little cinnamon roll. Here's one of those motions that, again, does not have an alphabet letter. This is called a diagonal. In a diagonal, you are calling the direction based on the arm that is in the air. And it's going to be half of a high V and half of a low V. So if we are calling a right diagonal, the arm is going to be in a high V motion, and your left arm is going to be in a low V motion. If we call a left diagonal, your left arm will be in a high V motion, and your right arm will be in a low V motion. Whenever you are in a diagonal position, you want to make sure that both of your hands have your big cinnamon rolls facing forward. Moving on, we are going to do what's called a bow and arrow. This is yet another one of those non-alphabet letter motions. In a bow and arrow, just like an L, your direction is going to be called in the direction you would be pointing. So if you are going to make a right bow and arrow, your right arm is in a T and your left arm is in a half T. I want to see big cinnamon rolls on your T arm and little cinnamon rolls on your half T arm. If you were to go ahead and switch those, you would now be doing a left bow and arrow. So left arm is in a T and right arm is in a half T. Our last motion, going back to the alphabet again, is called a K motion. Now the K motion seems to be the one that people have the most trouble with getting it right, because you want to make sure that your arms are straight. And because your lower arm is going to be across your body, it has to be slightly in front of your body to make sure that you're not bending your elbow around your midsection. So if you are going to do a right K, you're going to have in the air just like a high V. Your left arm is going to be directly across your body from your shoulder headed down towards your hip. And your top arm should be a big cinnamon roll and your bottom arm should be a little cinnamon roll. If you go ahead and With that, you're now going to be doing a left K. Once again, big cinnamon roll on the top, little cinnamon roll on the bottom, making sure that the bottom arm is nice and straight from the shoulder all the way down. You want to make sure that you're keeping your shoulders forward and you're not twisting your body to the side, because then your K, while it still looks like a K, isn't so pretty for the rest of your body line. So those are all of your basic motions. I'm going to have Brittany and Quan go through them really quickly for you one more time. High V, low V, T, half T, goalpost, low goalpost, daggers, box, half right high V, half right low V, half left high V, half left low V, right bow and arrow, left bow and arrow, right L, left L, right diagonal, left diagonal, right punch, left punch, and a good old right K and a left K. And those are all of your motions. Make sure you practice.